welcome to this. This is our little political post-election panel.
Yeah.
It is currently November the 5th, the day after the November midterm elections of 2014, and I'm joined here by three wonderful panelists. Jacob Barnes representing the Young Democrats of St. Paul's. We have Peter Payne representing the Young Republicans of St. Paul's. And we have Victoria Bennington speaking on behalf of the Young Independents. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about the election, how it went, its implications for America's future, and perhaps be fielding some questions from our wonderful audience. All right, so let me just start by asking each of you what you guys thought of, so if you were surprised by the results of yesterday's election.
No. I mean, this was kind of expected. The Republicans winning the House was kind of expected, but I'm a little disappointed.
I really wasn't surprised at all. I mean, with events leading up to the election, I did think that the Republicans were going to take control of the Senate, and I feel that with the average ignoramus, they sort of blame all the problems in our country on the president, and simply because he's a Democrat, I feel that might have motivated people to vote Republican, even if they wouldn't anyway.
Good point. Victoria?
I completely agree with Peter. I think we've discussed this before, that this is a complete repeat of history in which once people start blaming the president, especially after 2 terms, you start getting the next, like the upcoming election, the other major party will gain.
So, yeah, all right, so those are some very interesting comments. Now, I would like to build upon what, Peter, you were saying, that the American public likes to blame the president for all the problems of America. Now, right now, obviously, this election is a pretty good representation of Obama's kind of plunging popularity at this point. Do you blame Obama for his lack of success in his past 2 terms so far, or do you think that there are other factors at play?
I think there were a lot of other factors at play. I think especially after the Bush administration, people were expecting like a savior for the country, and I think that he didn't quite live up to the public's expectations. And at the same time, we've sort of seen a trend going all the way back to Clinton, then to Bush, then to Obama. People start out liking their president, and at the end, one with Clinton, the whole Lewinsky incident with Bush, everything that happened in the Middle East, and the overall discontent with President Obama at nearing the end of his terms. I feel like we have seen a trend of people just not liking the president because they feel that they haven't done anything. And while I understand, while having a split legislative branch with a Republican House and a Democratic Senate, it can be really, really hard to get stuff done. But with that in mind, President Obama did have a fully Democratic legislative branch and did not use that to his advantage. So I think there is definitely some blame to report on the president.
Good point. Jacob, do you have anything to say to that?
I agree with Peter in saying that there are a lot of different factors at play. I think one would be naive to suggest that Obama hasn't, or that Obama isn't at least partially to blame. Like Peter said, he did at one point have a fully Democratic legislative branch, and as Peter said again, did not take any, or did not make sufficient use of it. But at the same time, he couldn't have been America's savior. He couldn't have been what they wanted, and unfortunately, the bar was set too high. I mean, too high for any president, I think, to ever reach. But I personally have been disappointed in the way that he has sort of succumbed to partisanship, and would like to see, at least in these last 2 years, an attempt to bridge those partisan divides and work more sort of work towards more bipartisanship, even though he doesn't have the Senate.
All right. So this next question, I guess, builds. We've talked a lot about analyzing the causes of this election, and now I think we can move on to what this election implies for the future of the country. And this question is for Victoria. I was wondering, since as an independent, obviously, the independents value, reaching across the aisle, not being bogged down by partisanship like Jacob was talking about. I was wondering what you thought, if you believe that this election would increase the gridlock, like experienced in the current governmental system, or will it alleviate it, or will the two parties work towards cooperation? Because today Obama met with, I believe, with Mitch McConnell and discussed cooperating and making the most of this new governmental arrangement. So what do you think the future of the American gridlock will be?
I think we've got an interesting phenomena. I talked about this in my capstone last year, in that the growing population of people in the United States are actually going towards the independent party, and there's major kind of distaste for the lack of true bipartisanship in the country right now, because in order for something to be bipartisan, there has to be some communication and working together, which really has not been going on. But according to numbers, the polarization has actually been increasing each year. So I think that I honestly don't know what will overtake, if the increase in independence and the kind of the call for going across party lines and trying to work things out, or kind of introducing a really strong third party, if that's going to overcome the polarization that has been increasing each year. I think that at some point, at least I hope that that is going to die out, or at least reach kind of a conclusion, and that the incoming generations will at least make it will go for kind of a different tactic, because I think anyone who could see what's going on in history right now, or what has happened in history, is that this kind of flip-flopping, as Peter and Jacob have said, about having one party in the legislative branch, or even as president, flip-flopping between who is quote-unquote to blame and changing each year hasn't solved anything so far. So.
Can I jump in?
Sure.
As a Democrat, this election really scares me. Not because I'm afraid of losing the legislative branch or losing the Senate, but because it makes me worry that this gives the Republicans false hope. That it makes me think that if these are the results that we see, if we see if we see Republicans regaining Democratic states, retaining formerly Republican states, that it sort of pumps artificial life into a Republican model that can't withstand a younger, fundamentally more socially liberal electorate that's going to emerge in the coming elections. And I think that come 2016, if the Republican Party sort of runs off of these lines and allows itself to run on the same ticket that it has for the last number of elections, a socially conservative one, financially conservative, I think that it can still win votes on being financially conservative, but certainly becoming socially conservative is going to hold it back. I think that it's going to suffer a lot in the long run. For the sake of the Republican Party, and Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, or if you disagree, but I honestly think the Republican Party would have been better served by getting a scare in these elections and sort of wisening up.
I actually disagree in the sense that I think that the turning of the legislative branch into both Republican House and Senate will help the Republican Party, because if we can assume that a lot of Republican votes during these midterm elections came from the discontent of the Obama administration, then we can assume that because of the polarization of parties, Obama probably won't get a lot done in the last 2 years of his term, because he simply won't be able to get along with the legislative branch. And in doing so, I think that will create even more discontent with the president, because everyone now is saying, oh, Obama isn't doing anything. And with a completely Republican legislative branch, I think that reinforces the fact that nothing can really get done. And so then I think ever-growing discontent with Obama would actually help the Republican